Once upon a time, in the ancient lands of Dahomey, where Nigeria, Benin and Togo are today, a special spiritual tradition began. This tradition was called Vodou, which comes from a word meaning God or spirit in the language of the Fon people. It's also known as Vodun or Vodun. Vodou is an old religion starting more than 6,000 years ago in West Africa. It didn't start in the Caribbean like many people think. Around the world, there are over 30 million people who follow Vodou. They believe in many gods and spirits. Their ceremonies include things like offering animals to spirits and letting spirits take over their bodies. Vodou is more than just dolls and pins, curses, or stories of zombies. It believes in one main powerful spirit, like Maulisa for the Fon people, Olorun for the Yoruba, or Bondi and Grand Met in Haiti. One special part of Vodou is when spirits take over people's bodies. This might sound strange, but it's an important way for people to connect with these powerful spirits or their ancestors. During this time, it's like the spirits are riding inside the person and they can communicate and give answers. This is a time when people feel very close to their ancestral spirits. Vodou has been shown in movies in a really exciting way, but it's also been treated badly by some people. It became like souvenirs for tourists in places like New Orleans, but its true history goes way back to West Africa, where it started. This is where the terrible slave trade happened. But Vodou was carried by the people who suffered to faraway lands like Brazil, Haiti, Cuba, and Louisiana. Even after 400 years, the spirit of Vodou still lives strong in the hearts of West Africans. However, there is also a darker side to this story. Some people, known as sorcerers or botono, used bad spirits to harm others with curses. Just like any faith, Vodou also had people who wanted good luck, success, and protection. So you see, Vodou is not just something strange or far away. It's part of how people all around the world look for meaning and connection to the divine or the supernatural world. It's a story that goes from West Africa to different lands, woven with spirits and beliefs, where the sacred and the everyday meet, and where faith opens the door to the unknown.
Nigeria had a calendar as advanced as Europe's, but they never told you. The Yoruba tracked time with astonishing precision. Their year had 364 days, divided into 91 weeks of 4 days each. Priests used the calendar to fix festivals, track the seasons, and guide farming. It wasn't random. It was astronomy. Some Yoruba priests were so skilled, they predicted eclipses. Colonizers dismissed this as pagan time. But the truth? The Yoruba were already keeping cosmic order while Europe was still struggling with its own calendar reforms. The Yoruba calendar proves Africa had its own science erased in the name of empire.
Honor and respect, honor and respect, honor and respect. Divine all greetings, divine all blessed greetings and salutations to you and yours. It is another edition of Revolutionary Hoodoo, New Orleans Voodoo Secrets and Recipes. Voodoo Hoodoo 101. Powered, produced, promoted, sponsored, supported, and brought to you by NOIVD, New Orleans International Voodoo Day. Inspired by National Voodoo Day in Benin, and led by our Black spiritual community leaders here locally, New Orleans International Voodoo Day is a day of collective remembrance and spiritual reparation that is preceded by a symposium and includes a procession to monuments at the sites of slavery here in New Orleans, a ritual to account for and seek absolution for the city's and the country's participation in the institution of slavery, homage to those ancestors who suffered through and survived the transatlantic slave trade, and honor and appreciation for the achievements of those who came out of this oppression. 2 days of education, creative expression, elevation, cultural exchange, and above all, healing. Saturday and Sunday, May 23rd and 24th, 2026. Through authentic voodoo traditions handed down through generations, we offer a path to healing from the ongoing ramifications of slavery and racism in the United States. And we certainly appreciate your continued support at 9 p.m. Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, weeknights, here on a social media platform near you by way of our StreamYard link. We appreciate those who continue to show up and support us live in the chat room. Greetings to you and yours, Ray Alexander. Greetings, Daniel Neal, a member of our community. And certainly we're grateful for the continued support and participation of our beloved co-hosts. Wild Man, First Priest, Armor Bearer, Joshua Nylan Tanner, also NOIVD member and La Source member, Sister Toni Martinez, Elder Reggie, founder and leader of Shrine of the White Cloth, on this platform also identified as Green Soap, and also NOIVD member, and Bianca Johnson Plessy, NOIVD member and La Source member. We certainly appreciate your continued support and participation. I'm going to try and keep the reading a little bit shorter tonight as we talk about what is voodoo and why is this religion so misunderstood. By Austin Harvey, edited by Jocelyn Inglis. Originating from enslaved West Africans taken to the Americas during the transatlantic slave trade, voodoo is one of the world's most misinterpreted religions. In popular media, voodoo is often portrayed as a sort of dark magic. Some people even believe that voodoo is inherently evil, thanks in part to tropes involving voodoo dolls, subjectively macabre imagery, and rituals that differ greatly from those practiced by more Abrahamic religions. But voodoo, often spelled Voodoo or Vodou or Vodu, is not an evil religion. Instead, it emphasizes a deep connection to the spiritual world and the spirits summoned in voodoo rituals. Loa are somewhat similar to Christian notions of saints. And despite claims that voodoo is devil worship, the devil does not actually appear in most versions of voodoo cosmology. In fact, it might surprise some that Haitian voodoo is particularly inspired by Christianity, Catholicism, and combines traditional West African religions with Roman Catholic beliefs. As voodoo rose to prominence among enslaved people in modern day Haiti, as well as Louisiana, between the 16th and 19th century, a similar practice also eventually made its way into Louisiana and subsequently into the US. Enslaved people were taken from West Africa to America in the early days of the nation's founding, also brought their traditional beliefs with them. Like in Haiti, the West Africans in modern day Louisiana also merged traditional West African religions with Roman Catholicism, leading to Louisiana voodoo, also known as New Orleans voodoo. And after a 1791 slave revolt in Haiti, many followers of Haitian voodoo fled the country and settled in Louisiana, bringing their influence to the region as well. And often also understated is the Creole population that also fled Cuba and also made their way into the Louisiana lexicon of voodoo as well. And though many tried to put a stop to Haitian voodoo, Louisiana voodoo, and other West African diasporic religions, they endure to this day, especially in the Caribbean and in New Orleans. And fortunately for practitioners, the general opinion of voodoo has started to change, albeit a bit slowly. Like with many religions, it's difficult to pinpoint a specific time when Haitian voodoo emerged. And generally, historians point to the 16th and 17th centuries as it was when it first rose to prominence among enslaved people in Haiti and when it was particularly Christianized by Roman Catholic missionaries. The foundations of voodoo evolved from different traditional religions across West Africa. The word voodoo itself, in the Fon language of the African kingdom of Dahomey, present-day Benin, translates to spirit or deity. And as West African ethnic groups were enslaved by European colonists, they were forcibly taken to colonial Saint Domingue, present-day Haiti, where Roman Catholic missionaries began to teach them about Catholicism. The enslaved West Africans took their teachings and started to mix them with the beliefs they had long held, especially the West African Vodou religion. The result essentially was voodoo, a belief that everything is spirit. According to voodoo, human beings are spirits who live in the visible world, but many spirits exist beyond that. Loa, mystique or mysteries, invisible, the invisibles, and zans or angels all exist in an unseen spiritual world alongside the spirits of those who have died and the ancestors. This spiritual world is called Ginen, and voodoo practitioners believe that this world and everything else was created by God, the same God worshiped by Christians. This new religion became incredibly important to many enslaved people from West Africa. And according to a report from the University of Delaware, it served as a way for those people to feel a sense of freedom despite their enslavement and persevere through unthinkable hardships. They were forced to keep their religious practices discreet, though as slaveholders had baptized them as Catholic and threatened those who practiced voodoo openly. While the slaves did adopt some Catholic beliefs, they also continued to practice their traditional beliefs, albeit in secret. And unlike Christianity, there is no sacred book of voodoo worship, at least not an official one like the Bible. It is primarily based on an oral tradition passed down from generation to generation. Rituals include prayers, songs, dances, gestures, and sometimes animal sacrifice, all of with the aim of restoring the balance in relationships between people and between humans and spirits. And as I begin to unmute my co host, I want to also add that I continue to teach and continue to emphasize that through this great, tragic middle passage, we didn't lose our ability to count. And so, certainly, our ability to remember and revive ritual prayer and application, songs, dances, gestures, certainly involved our remembrance of our ability to count, counting rhythms, counting sacred days, following the ritual calendar, the lunar cycle, and the solar cycles. And thus our ability to perform divination. The divination went from Odu, Ifa, Dafa, Afa-based divination to the usage of divine numbers and regular decks of cards. And certainly today we're seeing the sort of infusion of tarot, though it may have Loa on it or it may have Orisha on it. It's really not unique or specific to voodoo at all. And so it's important to keep in mind that our ability to remember music, to remember our dance, to remember our drumming, would have also contained the secrets and the mysteries of our practices and our traditions. Greetings and salutations, Joshua, Nylan, Tanner. Please unmute your mic and come on in. The beloved Queen Mother, Sister Toni Martinez, unmute your mic and come on in. Elder Reggie, Green Soap, founder and leader of Shrine of the White Cloth, unmute and come on in. And our beloved Sister Queen Mother Bianca Johnson Plessy, please unmute and come right on in. What say you, beloved?
Hey, everybody. Good night, panel, people in the listening audience. You know, they have a lot of stuff in the Bible that would be considered voodoo and hoodoo. instructions supposed to be came from the creators that told the priest that went onto the Ark of the Covenant what kind of clothes to wear, that it must have fringes on it, the metal and the jewels to wear. They could not enter the Ark of the Covenant without that. The priests must always wear fringes on their clothes and a certain type of material. A lot of people at one time thought that the metals and the jewels were meant to protect them from some sort of radioactivity that was inside the Ark of the Covenant. The numbers, the divination, the prophecies, the readers of dreams like Joseph, who could prophesize through his dreams and tell people what dreams were. The markings and tools that the Hebrews passed down to the then Orthodox Jews on what signs and symbols to wear and to put on certain furniture to sew into their baby's clothing, what color thread to use. All of that to me is a form of hoodoo and voodoo. So people got crossed up too, I think, in the Bible, because I know I did. And you're torn between what they say in the New Testament about suffer a witch to die. That's in the New Testament. That's not in the Old Testament. And after doing more research, I came to the conclusion that that was put in there to keep people from exercising their powers and looking more into the spiritual world, besides what they're telling us about in the Christian Bible. I really don't use the New Testament too much. Is no Jews in the Old Testament because that's a history of the Hebrew people, the people of Abraham. And it's only one time in the New Testament that Hebrews is mentioned in there. They are not the same. They are not the same people. They're usurpers. They took the powers that we had, that we taught them, and then they used them for themselves, and then they used them against us. So that's like my take on that thing. What say you, Elder Reggie?
Oh, blessing, Sister Toni. Thanks for passing me the mic. Divine Prince, good topic. Brother Joshua, welcome. Sister Bianca, and those in the chat. Well, the way I see it is, for me mainly, I always just been interacting with spirit, what we call other world beings or energies, and that started in the Black spiritual church because they used to call forth spirits there. And I see all the ATRs, whatever name we give it, is interacting with real spirit. And just to bring it back home, and I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, but the ritual we just did with one of my relatives there, and the encounter she had with real spirits, is just a testament to why we continue to walk in this path of the ATRs, because the spiritual world, the spiritual phenomenon is just as real as this physical one. And that's how I see it.
Yeah, you're right, sir. You are definitely right. They coexist together.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people are lucky enough to be able to be in both.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to be able to be in both. What say you, Sister Bianca?
I do want to mention that I know that like we would talk about the Bible, how there are a lot of things in the Bible that we can learn from. And I do notice that like when it comes down to herbs and stuff in the Bible, it actually tells us some of the herbs and stuff to use for cleansing or spiritual cleansing and stuff. I know like Psalms 51. That was the main one that a lot of people use, and I know it talk about like using hyssop for cleansing. And so I feel like a lot of the Bibles, a lot of scriptures in the Bible have different things that give you ingredients or herbs and stuff to use for certain different things that we also use in voodoo or hoodoo tradition. And I feel like when some cultures talk about voodoo and hoodoo is like full of magic and all this other stuff, Bible the same way too, because even in Exodus they talk about how they had like a rod or something and they turned the rod into a snake to help fight off different battles and stuff or different enemies. To me, sometimes I feel like when I read the Bible, I'm just like, how can they judge us and they got magic? Like they got magic and ingredients and all that stuff through the Bible. So I don't get how people say certain things about voodoo and hoodoo when some of the stuff is correlate to some of the things that's in the Bible.
Yes, and that goes back to what the preacher said. I know so many people that go to church. I mean, so many people I speak to. They have never read the Bible, let alone studied the Bible. They physically have not picked it up like any other book, novel, and read from cover to cover. They only listen to what a particular preacher is saying when they run across that preacher. And in the slavery days, when you had only the white preachers for them to listen to, telling them not to do that, it's evil, it's bad, and them believing it, has carried on generations through the Black community.
Yeah.
Has carried that lesson has carried on. And before they pick the book up and read it, they just rather keep repeating stuff that was told that worked against us.
Yeah.
I mean, the Prince was talking about the dances and stuff. In the Bible, they say you're supposed to do the circle dance, beat the drum and a tambourine, and do the circle dance. But yet, in most Christian churches, except the spiritualist churches like that and the Pentecostal churches, the older churches, they don't even play music. I know when I was a child in Catholic school, they had a young nun came and she started doing a guitar mass. And you would have thought, I mean, she was a celebrity, that something fantabulous had happened. And that was in the 70s, the early 70s. But the Bible tells you these things that we should be doing. What say you, Brother Joshua?
How you guys doing this evening? Brother Reggie, Toni, Bianca, Divine Prince. I say, yeah. In terms of what we was taught, what Divine was covering about voodoo and it's how can I say it? I'm trying to use the word the deviling up of voodoo and making it look dark and making it look like it's evil and stuff like that, man. That's all because of, you know, the power that holds and what spirit holds. Everything that has its manifestation in reality comes from the spirit world. So, and like you said, Toni, I agree with you. You said about how some of us, we live in both realities and able to function in both realities. You know, given the teachers and the community that we have, especially here in New Orleans, being able to tap into the roots of those things and having that information at our disposal and the elders to show us the way. But yeah, in the process, we still get deep. Actually, today I was at work today at the healing center, and like I said, there's more and more people of other beliefs that's coming in and looking at our different shrines that we have like on display at the New Orleans Healing Center, sitting there talking about it, trying to, you know, understand it. but with a mindset that they're coming with. I guess they're coming with respect. I'm hoping that's the case, but I'm seeing this happen in real time where people are starting to reapproach voodoo and our spirituality in a way of trying to figure out information. And it's pretty cool to see. I like to see it move and become a national thing. But yeah, it's definitely, I agree with everything that you guys have been saying.
One example to me of a spell being cast on somebody in the Bible, I don't know all the exact names. Maybe y'all could help me with it, but the scenario was the female who wanted the head of John the Baptist brought on a silver platter.
Yeah.
She went to the king, and I don't remember his name, but I can find it if I had a Bible with close to me right now. And she did a dance in front of him that was called a dance of the 7 veils. He didn't want to do that at first to John the Baptist because he didn't see no harm, just like with Jesus. He didn't see no harm in what John the Baptist did. He didn't bother nobody. He just stayed down there preaching on the water and ducking people on the water. The king really wasn't interested. But she wanted it because he spoke out against her and her mother. So she did this dance with these veils of different colors. Now, the number 7 is powerful. And each one of the veils she had represented a 7 African power color. At the end of that dance, the king was like, bring me his head.
Mm.
She bewitched him. She put a spell on him.
Yep.
She
Right.
put a spell straight on him.
I can't remember. I think that king name, was it Herod? I don't know if it was Herod. I can't remember. I haven't looked at that story in a while.
I know, but I remember where all the voodoo at in the Bible. I just don't remember all the names. I'm not good with names at all.
What's the woman named Salem?
Chalamet, something like Chalamet, something like that.
Yeah.
Charlemagne, or something like that. Yeah, that was her name. But like I said,
Yes.
that was the instance of somebody being bewitched, having a spell placed on them.
You also had the witch of Endor, who was a biblical figure mentioned in 1 Samuel. She was said to be a female sorcerer who was consulted by King Saul when he sought to communicate with the deceased prophet Samuel.
Yes. And you also had oracles. My thing is, they took the books of Moses that was in the Old Testament out because that book have spells for you to put marks on paper and put in your pocket, pouch, as they called it back then, to draw money. They have all those spells in there. I did one myself and put it in my wallet to draw money out of that book. But then that book kind of scared me and I left it alone because it gets serious and deep. It goes deep. And I wasn't ready for that. I'm one of those that'll back off before I try to dive into something I fully don't understand.
Gypsy's Kitchen and Instagram said y'all were talking about Deborah as the palm tree symbol.
Huh?
In reference to the Bible scripture you were referencing earlier.
About the dance.
Yeah.
Oh, like I say, I can't remember the name. It's in the Old Testament where John the Baptist got killed. You have to look at who ordered the death of John the Baptist. Or the dance of the 7 veils.
Yeah, I think that was Herod that ordered that man. I can't remember the name of the woman, but I do remember the story and the 7 veils.
Yeah, it was what you just said is Herodis.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the one that ordered for John Baptist to be killed due to him being jealous.
Well, I would like, yeah, I would like to add something, and I'm not being controversial, but we got to get clarity here. When you're talking of the Bible, you can align the Bible with hoodoo, but you really can't align the Bible with voodoo. Voodoo,
Yeah.
when you get back to Benin and places like that, they're working off the Fa, or what we call Ifa, the 256 Odus. These Odus do not line up with no scriptures in the Bible. It is its own corpus. It is its own tree of wisdom. And that's all I'm saying. But as we came into the Americas, and we lost that way of knowledge, we start grafting with Catholicism in the church, and that formulated what we call hoodoo, Hoodoo, and that is more in alignment. And so I guess because voodoo is a sister path of hoodoo, we can say that voodoo is lined with the Bible, but technically it really don't. And I'm not being controversial. I'm just trying to just bring some information forward.
Yeah. You're right. You're right. You're completely right.
And I appreciate it because I operate from the Fa here in my temple. Everything is ordered and created by way of the Fa.
Yeah.
I still look at it as the Hebrews were in Africa. If the line of the tribe of Judah is black, the missing tribes is traced back to Ethiopia, is traced back to black people. Before the Hebrews went under one God, they had many.
Yeah.
You have to look at the ancient Hebrews before you get to the biblical Hebrews, where they turned it, but they had many. And they had to put all the idols and all the stuff that they did away to follow the one so-called God. So what if what they did before they went under the one God was fire? And they were ordered to stop. They were ordered, what? Moses ordered his brothers used to sell statues and stuff of other gods. And he ordered his brothers to destroy them. Because now they was doing this and not doing that no more. But what if the remnant of it still lingered in the people, and everybody didn't want to really go with the one God, and they still practice forms of it and change the forms of it to make it look just like we did here with Catholicism. The Hebrews didn't always believe in one God. They had a whole bunch of gods, different gods.
Yeah, Sister Toni, you raised a good point. It's just that the Hebrews and the Africans on that particular, that comes out of the East Coast, almost what was called the East Coast of Africa, because Egypt, we all know Egypt have an influence even on West Africa, even on the Hebrew systems like that. So you really got to go now and delve into what they was doing into Egypt to even try to lay out a basis of what was going forward in the Bible. That's just the way I see it. I might be wrong with
Yeah,
that.
that's a good way. That's a good way to see it. That's a good way to see it. But I'm also of the thing that it was 12 of them. We know they spread out all over the continent of Africa. They weren't just in one area. Not all the tribes. They spread out all over Africa.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that, because when I talk with the elders in Ghana, and also when I talk with the elders in Dogo land, which is Mali, they all reference back to Egypt, even in West Africa, of some of the path of their spiritual teachings. So I can see an alignment with that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was taught that voodoo had roots in ancient Egypt and quite perhaps older regions than ancient Egypt. But
The
but
old
I agree
kingdom.
with that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think it came to Egypt really when the Hebrews crossed over into Egypt, because one of the first things we know of something that would be considered hoodoo or voodoo was when death came to get the firstborn. And it was the Hebrews that had all the restrictions on what kind of clothes to wear and what not to do and all of this other stuff and what to do. And they told Moses, well, how can death not get our firstborn? And he told all of them, put the blood on their door sill and death would pass them by. Well, the Egyptians didn't know that. And the staff, as Sister Bianca was saying earlier, Egypt had magicians. They could do magic and stuff. And Moses came with a stick that swallowed up their magic. He outdid them with their magic. So to me, it goes back a long way and it's all interconnected throughout Africa. And just like we did it over here when we brought it from Africa and changed it around with the Catholicism here in New Orleans and in Louisiana, period, I do believe that's what a lot of them did, the Hebrews did, when Moses taught them, told them rather, we're not going to do this no more. And a lot of them rebelled against him. A lot of them rebelled against him, like what you talking about, one God. So, I keep studying and trying to connect the dots. To connect the dots. But Moses with the herbs and the sacrifices and the colors and all of that that's in the books they removed, what it is, the 5th and 6th book of the Bible that they took out, you'll think you really doing some serious hoodoo, not voodoo, not hoodoo. Because let me tell you, voodoo actually, I sit down. That's not my realm. And when I got to a certain part of reading it, I sit down because it was going into some voodoo type stuff from what I know of voodoo. So, but it's very interesting. I tell anybody to read the Bible front to back, to read the Bible, because it's a lot of lies that's being told by the minister in churches today. Stuff you can't find in the Bible. Yeah, I mean, everybody's standing in front of the preacher with the Bible wide open when he get married. It's no, do you take this woman? It's no wedding ceremony like that in the Bible.
Yeah, I agree. But what I wanted to add, Sister Toni, to what you're saying is that I think it was just 2 days ago, half of people in Africa and other places was looking to the sky based on some scripture that a rapture was going to take place 2 days ago, present time. Yeah. And these people really believe this. And as we can see today, 48 hours later, that did not happen.
Yeah. They have a whole tribe of Africans, the Dogon. Am I saying that right, Brother Ty? That look to the sky every day because they had people came from the sky in ships that taught them about the galaxy. These people knew how to map the stars and everything with no kind of aid. And every day there's a man that sits there and they watch the sky for them to return so that they won't be caught off guard. They waiting for them to come back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Every day for thousands of years they've been doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And these people, I didn't even pay attention to the rapture thing. But not only, and all over the world, they was looking for that. They even had people doing jokes. One man said he was going to buy a bunch of blow-up dolls with helium and let them go into the sky so people think it was the rapture. I really didn't
I
pay
know they
attention.
had some people who sold. They said the one that brother Reggie was talking about in Africa. They were saying that they sold a lot of their homes. They sold a lot of their stuff and everything. Thinking that they was gonna go because they figured they couldn't take all that with them just to turn around and go back home. Well, go back to nothing now.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Well, they got some money. They can go on vacation and think about what they did.
Yeah. So sometimes when you're reading the Bible, you gotta, I guess you gotta, like to say, read it with a grain of salt. Take what you can chew and spit out what you can't, because it's just not based on no evidential facts. It's a document of faith, and that's it.
And I think it's important to note too, in response to a question that's being asked in Instagram in the live chat about Lama Dharma.
Okay.
You see in a lot of the botanica shops now, but it's a creation of Latinx and Hispanic culture. But some spirits summoned by voodoo practitioners are not Orisha or Loa per se, but are ancestral spirits, spirits of deceased, those who've gone before us who may have been proficient in spirit battles or particular endeavors. And so figures like Lama Dama, who was a representation of a generic enslaved root worker or hoodoo practitioner, representations like Marie Laveau, who's not a Loa or a deity, but a ancestral figure, a documented ancestral figure, who was said to be proficient in the practice. So there's a lot more going on, than just Papa Legba and Eshu and Baron Samedi and Dantor. I often say and teach and was taught that our ancestors are our front line of defense.
Yep.
While many are reaching to do, deep, complex ritual applications with Loa and deities and such, our ancestors are our absolute front line of defense in all things human, in all things earthly, if you will. So I continue that legacy and that instruction of building your foundation based in ancestral inheritance, ancestral lineage, and ancestral knowledge, even before advancing into the realm of voodoos and Loas and Orishas. Lama Dama is a great figure to use in the creation of ancestral sacred spaces and shrines.
Well, our time has come to an end.
Yeah,
and I like to turn it over to Elder Reggie to close us out.
Thank you, Sister Toni.
You're welcome.
The Divine Prince, the one thing I like to add to the Dharma is that they fall under the line of spirit guides. Yes, we have our ancestors as our first front line of defense, but right behind the ancestor opens up a pantheon of spirit guides. some of the spirit guides will let themselves be known to you without practicing any system. And then some systems you get within, and the spirit guides may reveal themselves that way. And Lamar Madama is, especially from the 21 division coming out of the Dominican Republic, which shares border with Haiti. It's just in alignment with the spirit guide. That's all I wanted to add.
Elder
Unless we
Reggie,
forget, yes.
would a
Yes,
spirit
ma'am.
guide be what we would also call our guardian angel?
From my studying, angels are on a different dimension than spirit guides.
No, but I'm just saying what we call guardian angels, but they actually our spirit guides.
Oh, I see what you asked. The question you asked me. Yes, you can do that. Yes, because they are there, and in some way they just find a way of letting you know that they are around you, and so yes, you could put them in the place of a guardian angel. But
And
according to Bible, which I don't really read, they have angels which supposed to be on another dimensional level than spirit guides. That's all I'm trying to
I
put it.
just think they got so many angels, all of them really not angels. I think that's just a generic way of explaining stuff to us. Because also, to me, the spirit guide could be what some people call the gut feeling or my first mind. Something told you in your head, do it or don't do it. To me, that's a message from my guardian
You got it.
angel. Yeah, my spirit guide is telling me,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
no, no, don't go that way.
And I also think
yeah,
I want
yeah.
to kind of support what Elder Reggie was
Great.
saying too. I think it's also a mixing of cultural nuances. Angels
Yes.
are distinct
Mm-hmm.
from spirits, and so spirit guides
Mm-hmm.
are a completely different thing than angels or Orisha or
Yeah.
Loa. And sometimes though that overlapping language gets used in modern context, and it creates confusion.
Well said, Divine Prince. Yes, that's what the way I was trying to lay it out like that, but you did an excellent job with that. Yes, that's exactly how it is. Yeah, because no, before I close out, a person could just be sitting at a bus stop waiting on the bus, and in their mind they start having a conversation with a spirit guide, but that's their spirit guide that's with them the whole time, and the spirit guide just want to intercede with that person just to let them know, I'm here with you. Whatever stress, whatever burden you're holding at this time, I'm going to help you hold it. And then when you come out of that thought, the bus pull up and you're on the bus and you're going on your way, but you remembered that conversation. Some people call it daydreaming or things of that nature, but normally that's your spirit guides communicating with you.
And it's funny you would use the example of sitting at a bus stop. I was sitting at the Canal bus stop by Leon Franklin, right across from the Joy Theater. And I don't know if y'all remember this, but I was at the bus stop and I was listening to my earphones on my cassette player, and a voice came to me and said, "You're not paying attention." And I'm still listening to the music, but I hear this voice and it said, "Get up and move." So I say, "Oh shit, let me get up and move." And soon as I crossed the street, a Cadillac came and flattened the bus stop where I was sitting at, crossed Canal Street from by Krause store. It came the direction of Krause, going towards City Hall. Hit 3 cars and ran and flattened the ticket booth at the Joy Theater and ran into the wall, and the people come running out the top because the car started smoking like it was about to catch on fire. And people came from up at the top down the fire escape running out the theater. But if I had not listened to that voice, I would definitely not be talking to y'all right now.
Excellent, Sister Toni. That's it. Those are the real life
AYIBOBO.
experience that we have that build our faith
Yeah.
in the ATR. That's yes. Yeah. But okay, we'll continue and I'll close out. Lest we forget, The spiritual medicine of voodoo brings healing and relief from the shackles of slavery that binds the master and the slave to the same chain of social division. Excellent show again tonight, everyone. Ashe, ashe, ashe. Good night, and we love you all.
Good night, everyone.
Okay.
Good night, everyone.
AYIBOBO. Nagasaelu. Nagasaelu. Elwe. Nagasaelu. Nagasaelu. Elwe. Ewa ewa nagasaelu. Elwe. Ewa ewa nagasaelu. Elwe. Ago ago. Ewa nagasaelu. Ago ago. AYIBOBO. Agole yo mo akwa imaje.